In my past life I loved Guy desperately, doing all sorts of crazy things for him. But he destroyed my family, and I died with no grave to bury me. Reborn at 18, the guy in front of me glared with contempt. Keep your dirty money, I don't want it. I promptly took back the bank card. What a coincidence, I wasn't planning to give it anyway. Whoever wants to support this misery can go ahead, I'm done keeping company with it. Take your dirty money, I don't want it. The boy in front of me wore an expression of pure defiance, looking at me as if I were something filthy. His sudden raised voice drew a crowd in front of the busy academic building. Many people turned to gawk. Before long, someone recognized the two of us. Isn't this guy's big simp Lena? She's really shameless, coming to lick our school's noble campus hard again. Right? Does she even know how to spell shame? This Lena, relying on her family's money, spends all day insulting people with it. She's simply unbearable. The surrounding voices pulled me out of my daze. I really had been reborn, back to 18. I looked at the young guy in front of me, briefly lost, then quickly came to my senses. The despair that had driven me to jump from the 22nd floor resurfaced in my mind. The next second, a slap landed on his face. Shameless thing with a face to spare, who do you think you are, yelling at me like that? I'm 18 now, not 38. I am the Lin family's eldest miss now, not the Lena he drove to the brink of ruin. He only treated me that way because I loved him, but too bad, I'm awake now. Who would still indulge him? Guy was clearly stunned by my hit, frozen for a second before coming to. Lena, are you fucking crazy? How dare you hit me? His face was full of humiliation as he raised his hand high, intending to strike back. I sneered, lifting my chin to meet him. What? Want to hit me? Do you dare? He hesitated, looking at me as if puzzled by my sudden change in attitude. Wasn't I supposed to be fawning over him? Wasn't I supposed to, like every other time, take his insults without answering and even obediently stuff money into his pocket? His face went ashen, he silently put his hand down, ultimately not daring to strike. I watched that scene and suddenly laughed out loud. This was the man I had loved for half my life in my last life. So it turned out he couldn't escape convention either. Without my love, he was nothing more than an entirely ordinary young man. In my previous life, in my attempts to curry his favor, I knew he came from a poor family and sought every possible way to support him in life. I bought him delicious food, designer clothes, and shoes, gifted him a high-end phone, the top-spec computer, and even handed him money. Classmates and teachers all knew that Guy had Lena as his ultimate sycophant. She was tastelessly obsequious, constantly trying to corrode him with a sugar-coated barrage of money. But classmate Guy, of noble character, even though he came from poverty and lived hand-to-mouth, would not accept charity. Whenever he faced the vulgar classmate Lena, he would scowl coldly, holding fast to his principles. Everyone praised him. Classmate Guy was the truly upright one, the nation's future, a pillar of the motherland. But they didn't know that Guy, who showed me impatience and disdain in public, would quietly take my things for himself when no one was looking. Like just now, if I forcefully stuffed this bank card into his pocket, he would put on an air of reluctance, then, with a face full of indignant shame, declare to me and everyone else that the money should be considered a loan to him. He was practiced in playing the part, reaping all the good reputation. In reality he was utterly hypocritical, a complete thankless wretch. In my past life I treated him so well, and in the end it led to inviting a wolf into the house, the family's ruin, and my own tragic death by jumping off a building. In this life, I will never be love-blinded again, never help an ungrateful scoundrel. Let this damned man suffer all the hardships of the world. Thinking that, I sneered coldly, coward. My voice carried clearly into Guy's ear. His face instantly flushed red, he glared at me and ground his teeth. Lena, don't go too far. You're just lucky to have some filthy money. Heh, so it's filthy money, is it? I picked up the bank card in my hand and laughed softly. If that's the case, then I'll take it back. I actually find it rather fragrant. A flash of surprise crossed Guy's eyes, as if he hadn't expected me to really take it back. Then, as if a realization hit him, something else dawned on his face and intense humiliation welled up in his gaze. Lena, you did this on purpose. You knew my mom was sick and needed money, so you came to show off in front of me. Despicable, shameless woman. I'd rather die poor than accept your charity, and I'd never be your boyfriend. You make me sick. After saying that, Guy didn't look at me anymore. He turned to leave. Wait, don't go. I called out to stop him. Letting him leave that easily would be far too cheap. But Guy clearly misunderstood. He turned back triumphantly, a mocking smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. What, regret it now? Lena, I'll tell you, even if you kneel and beg me, I won't forgive you. I looked at Guy, whose thoughts were peculiarly whimsical, and laughed. Guy, you've got quite the nerve. I get that you're vain and care about face, and that you don't like my straightforward style. But how do you explain pretending to be aloof in public, refusing my gifts, turning down my money, then quietly accepting everything behind my back? Guy hadn't expected me to throw his pride aside and lay everything out like this. His face flushed purple and blue in a most lively way. But that was nothing yet. I looked him in the eye and, addressing the onlookers, raised my voice. Classmates, tell me, isn't what he's doing both acting like a saint and playing the harlot at the same time? Wow. The moment my words landed, the crowd erupted. No one had imagined there was this kind of gossip between us. The public's tone changed immediately. What? So Guy is actually such a two-faced person? No wonder he's supposedly a poor student yet can afford the newest sneakers and the latest phone. Turns out they're all gifts Lena secretly gave him. What a hypocrite, shameless. I used to like him so much, what a disappointment. Gross man, ugh. The murmurs around him made Guy's face flush crimson. He stammered out an explanation to the onlookers. It's not like that, don't listen to this wicked woman's lies. She pursued me, and when I rejected her she flew into a jealous rage. I'm not that kind of person. At that, some in the crowd shifted their stance. I'm on Guy's side. Lena must have been humiliated and, unable to get him, went and ruined his reputation. Such a vicious woman. Some people objected, but Lena is so rich, there's no need for her to frame Guy, is there? Yeah, and how do you explain all those designer clothes on Guy? Public opinion turned increasingly against Guy. He grew anxious, pointed at me and spat through his teeth. Don't listen to her, she forced all those things on me. I didn't want them. I watched Guy's panic like one admires a cornered dog and said coolly, forced you. I can force something on you and I can force you to wear it. What a big head and small brain, lying without even sketching it out. Utterly brain dead. Onlookers, Guy is really an idiot. Does he actually believe what he's saying? If he didn't want Lena, could she still shove herself onto him? Today we finally saw what it looks like to be spoon-fed. Disgusting. Caught in the eye of the storm, Guy was frantic. No, really, she forced it on me. I truly didn't want it. I stood quietly to the side watching Guy lose his mind. He wasn't yet the one in charge of the Lynn Corporation, not the smiling tiger hiding a knife. His temperament and scheming hadn't been honed enough. Look, you can't even withstand a little public pressure. In my last life he drove our whole family to death and seized our company. People called him a usurper, living off others, an ingrate without conscience, and he never got angry. Now he's so fragile it's as if a poke from me could shatter his bones. How amusing. Guy, let me grind you into the mud bit by bit. I will take back every gift I ever gave you and force you to respect your fate, to become a mouse that can only look up at people like us. Oh. I said, deliberately letting my gaze roam over him with flippant insolence. Fine, give it all back to me. Guy was indeed furious and ashamed, snapping, fine, I'll return them. I'll take them off and give them back to you when we get home. Who cares about this junk anyway? Junk? But all those rags on him added up to over 100,000, more than his 4 years of college tuition. How could a poor student like him sneer at such things, even more so at me, the one who provided them? It really was my spoiling him. I shook my head and said, Guy, you're mistaken. I mean all of it. Everything I've given you over the years, give it all back to me. When Guy heard that, he wore an incredulous expression, but soon recovered, his eyes quickly filling with resentment. Lena, I always knew you were petty. You just saw me talk to Joy a few more words, and you ruin me like this. Return them all, just return them. I found it amusing. Guy really was hopeless. He still hadn't realized the danger and actually thought I was just jealous. I lifted a faint smile. Fine, it's a deal, I'll have someone come collect them tonight. You better get all your things sorted beforehand. I watched Guy's fleeing back as he left like he was running away, then took out my phone from my pocket. I felt he still hadn't grasped the full meaning of my demand to return everything. Hello, Uncle Wilson? This is Lena. Cancel my sponsorship for Guy. And withdraw the hospital's special care for his mother as well. Also, take back that free apartment next to the school that we lent him. After hanging up, I let out a long, ragged breath. Good. Once these are arranged, I thought, Guy would understand that I meant everything to be returned. Without me, let him face reality's brutal blow alone. Let's see how long he can keep up that pristine persona. What happened in front of the teaching building quickly spread. Someone even posted the incident on the school forum. The blow to Guy was clearly no small thing. He skipped both of his afternoon major classes. For a good student like him, this was the first time. Seeing Guy absent, quite a few classmates slyly turned to look at me during class, probably guessing when I would bow my head and apologize to him. I paid those looks no mind. Finally I had another chance. Who has time for dating now? I was going to study properly. I am the only daughter in my family. The future of the Lin family is to be placed in my hands. This time I would hold power firmly in my grasp and let no one take it from me. The moment class ended, I grabbed my phone and hailed a taxi. I couldn't even wait to have the family driver pick me up. I missed my parents. In my previous life, because of a bad decision, the Lin family lost its status. My father was driven to death by rage over Guy, and my mother, grief-stricken, went with him. Afterwards I barely scraped by alone, planning to drag Guy down to hell with me. Who could have imagined that at the crucial moment I'd be betrayed by a close friend and outmaneuvered by them? Despair swallowed me, and I jumped from a building to finish my miserable life. Thinking about it, it had been 3 years since I'd seen my parents. Now all I wanted was to throw myself into their arms and hold them tightly. I urged the driver to go faster, desperate to get home as soon as possible. The familiar garden villa soon came into view, my heart burning, even my eyes involuntarily filled with tears. I opened the car door and got out, and just as I was about to walk into the yard, a figure rushed out. Lena, wait. Wendy, Guy's younger sister, now wearing a white dress, ran up in front of me. She planted herself before me, her pale, sharp face knotted with 2 tightly furrowed brows, and in a haughty, condescending tone scolded me. Lena, how could you treat my brother like that? Don't you know how much you're damaging a man's pride? Men need face. Acting like this, you'll never win him over. Me? I really can't deal with you. How about this, give me that diamond necklace you got for your birthday last time, and I'll think of a way to smooth things over with my brother. He's soft-hearted, I'll talk to him. If he's in a good mood he might forgive you. She put on a show of great charity, as if asking to swindle me was perfectly reasonable. That diamond necklace of mine was worth 8 figures, what a huge appetite she has. In my last life she deliberately got close to me, using the pretext of helping me pursue her brother, and became my best friend. I was naive and thought she genuinely cared for me, so I catered to every request she made. $100,000 bags, expensive jewelry, if she wanted it, I gave it without batting an eye. She conned a lot of nice things out of me and built herself up at school as a rich heiress, basking in all the attention. But she stood to the side, clapping and laughing when Guy hurt me, saying she had been wanting to spite me for a long time. I had planned to deal with her later, but now that she came to my doorstep willingly, it would be a waste of my lifetime's hard work if I didn't teach her a lesson. She saw me standing there motionless, threw her head back haughtily and sneered, "Aren't you going to get it?" I broke into a smile and nodded, "All right, wait a moment." I'll go fetch someone now and take back everything you gave me. I rushed into the house and saw my father chatting with a group of uncles. Among them was Uncle Richard, who in the future would be a big player in new energy. Our families used to be close, but later Guy did so many things that he severely offended him, and we fell out. But he was also the only person willing to help us after our family fell into decline. I will never forget that he rented an apartment for me when I had lost everything and even found me a job. Seeing these familiar, vivid faces again, I walked over excitedly. Dad, Uncle Richard, Uncle Wong, hello everyone. My dad brightened when he saw me return. Lena, why are you back so early today? I knew what he meant. At this time of day I would usually be trailing after Guy. If I wasn't delivering food with him, I was working with him in the cafe, or going to the hospital with him to take care of his mother with uremia. A complete fool, a bootlicker. Good thing I can see it clearly now. I smiled at my dad and said, "Missed you, of course, I just wanted to come back early to see you." Missed you for 2 lifetimes, I thought inwardly. Hearing me, my dad's grin widened. Alright, if you miss me that much then come back earlier from now on. Our home is more comfortable than those cafes and hospitals out there. I fully agreed and answered loudly, "Mem." Uncle Richard looked at me and smiled. After greeting me he asked how life at school was going and how my studies were. After chatting with me for a few sentences, he turned back to talking with my dad. "Victor, do you know anything about this new energy sector? I think this project will be very in demand in the future. The country is starting to take the environment seriously, and internationally this is also a major trend." Holy crap! Uncle Richard is here to propose a collaboration with my dad on a new energy project. Oh my God, how did I not know about this in my previous life? This is a booming, get-rich project of the future. You have to understand, the Fox tycoon Musk made his fortune from new energy vehicles. If my father joined this project, he'd own the original shares of Uncle Richard's company. After that, what would we have to fear from plots and schemes? He could retire and our family could live comfortably for generations. Uncle Richard had invited my father to join so early, of course he had to accept. After Uncle Richard finished speaking, I looked at my father expectantly, winking and nudging him constantly, practically willing him to say yes on my behalf. But I waited, and my father just kept looking at the sky, then at the ground, putting on an expression of deep thought, yet he still didn't say yes. He hesitated for a long time before saying, "Actually, I don't know much about this new energy, but as for driving, I also like petrol cars, press the pedal and with a roar you're off. So I think people won't be able to give up petrol cars in the future, which is why I'm not very interested in this project." My heart skipped a beat, only then did I remember how overly cautious my father was. No, this project must be one the Lin family joins. With that thought, I snatched up Victor. "Uncles, please have a seat for a bit. I need to talk to my father about something, we'll be out in a moment." My father followed me into the study puzzled. I closed the door, turned to him, and said earnestly, "Victor, don't be ridiculous." "My dad," I continued, "new energy is a booming industry of the future." My dad was unconvinced. What would a student like you know? Don't let people fool you. Lena, you can't spend the family's money recklessly, that's all your father's savings for your dowry. His words pricked at my nose. He said the same thing in my last life. And after Guy and I married, he really did hand everything over to me without reservation. Unfortunately, I trusted that scoundrel Guy and squandered the family fortune. This life, I'll be the one to protect my family. I turned around and quickly wiped the tears from the corners of my eyes, adjusted my mindset and said, "Dad, how do you know I don't know? I'm studying finance, I'm familiar with the cutting-edge knowledge. I'll tell you, the dean at our school is a real big shot in the industry. When he lectured us, he said, based on his overseas inspections and research into macro policies, that the country's future market belongs to new energy. You must invest in Uncle Richard's project, you can't miss it." What I said was half truth, half lie, but my dad believed me. He looked at me with bright, shining eyes and said proudly, "Lena, you've grown up. Fine, I'll follow your investment advice. Dad always thought you were goofing off at school, only chasing after that boy named Guy, but it turns out you knew all along. Now I can relax." "Yes. Dad, you can rest easy. I will never let love cloud my judgment again." After my father left, he immediately offered to invest in Uncle Richard's project, which moved Uncle Richard and the several elder gentlemen who had come with him to tears. Uncle Richard almost cried. It turned out they had already hit many walls. New energy is an emerging field here at home, and many people don't understand it, so getting investment was very difficult. But his company is currently at a very critical stage of technological development. If they can't find funding again, RD will have to be delayed by at least 2 years. Now my dad is willing to join. That will speed the project's progress even more. Hearing that, it suddenly clicked for me. No wonder Uncle Richard rose so late in his last life. It didn't stop him from becoming a future new energy tycoon, but I heard he really went through several years of hard times. Now with my involvement, he should succeed even faster. And our Lin family will be able to make even more money. After we finished chatting, Uncle Richard and the others were about to take their leave. When I saw them out, I suddenly remembered that Wendy was still waiting for me outside. I noticed the drivers who had come with Uncle Richard and the other uncles, each one broad-shouldered and barrel-chested, fists the size of grapefruits. Looking at them, it seemed like any one of them could kill a Wendy with a single blow. Suddenly, a brilliant idea flashed through my mind. I asked, "Uncles, will any of you still be around later?" As we stepped out of the courtyard, Wendy saw me and immediately launched into a tirade, unable to contain herself. "You, Lena, making me fetch something and taking so long. Were you doing it on purpose?" I thought about the plan for later and said good-naturedly, "How could that be? It's just that something came up at home and I was delayed a bit." Wendy saw my pleasant attitude and a flash of disdain crossed her eyes. "Then I'll be magnanimous and forgive you, but don't do it again next time, or I won't praise you in front of my brother anymore." Me, "Well, thank you very much for that." Wendy nodded with satisfaction and, as if it were the most natural thing, reached out her hand and said, "Where's my diamond necklace?" "Listen. That's hers now. How stupid was I in my past life to raise her with such an appetite? Luckily I've finally come to my senses." I shook my head. I just went back and found that my mom took the diamond necklace. You know, she happens to be out of the country these days. Wendy immediately objected. "What are we going to do?" "I don't care. I already told my friends I was bringing a diamond necklace to the gala. The Lena diamond necklace is something you owe me, so you have to figure this out." Wendy's robber logic was practiced to perfection. If I didn't give her my things, then I owed them to her. And she would really come back to collect them. She was like that in her past life too. More often than not, watching such petty behavior made me uncomfortable. But at the time I thought she was Guy's sister and just a young girl, so I didn't take it to heart. I even put her first in everything, trying as much as possible to accommodate her. But even though I treated her so well, she still looked down on me. Later, after Guy ruined me so badly that I was about to jump off a building, she stood below, clapping and smiling, urging me to hurry up so as not to waste her time. I forced down the murk in my chest and smiled. "I know. I'll definitely find a way for you." Only then did Wendy quiet down a bit. "What kind of way?" I smiled mysteriously. "A surprise, you'll see soon enough. I'm actually heading to your place now. I'll tell you when I get there." Wendy lifted her chin and glanced at me with disdain. "Fine. I knew you were going to apologize to my brother. I'll go back with you and say a few good words, but your little surprise better not be smaller than your diamond necklace." I nodded earnestly. "You can count on it." "Absolutely. Wendy, this surprise is going to be big enough that you'll remember it for the rest of your life." "Lena, where are you headed?" Just as Wendy and I were getting ready to go back to her place, Uncle Richard drove out of our yard in one of 5 luxury cars, accompanied by several other uncles. These uncles were all CEOs, each driving a nice car. Wendy's eyes went wide. I smiled and said, "Uncle Richard, I'm planning to go hang out at a classmate's house." Uncle Richard said warmly, "That works out perfectly, I'll give you a lift." Before I could speak, Wendy opened the car door and plopped into the seat, her voice squeezed with excitement. "Lena, get in quickly, this brother is so nice." Me. Got it. I didn't expect Wendy to be so cooperative, I didn't even have to act. She calls him brother, while I call him Uncle Richard. She's really got no shame. I clenched my fists so hard I didn't spit up last night's dinner. All the way, Wendy kept cozying up to Uncle Richard, but Uncle Richard, who knew what she was really like, ignored her. It left me suffering, smelling that whole time like a skanky fox. They live in one of the dirtiest, shabbiest little bungalows in our city, and even that place is rented. When the city gets redeveloped later, they won't be on the list for relocation. After a long walk through the alley, I finally arrived at the Gu residence. I gave Uncle Richard a look and got out of the car. No sooner had I stepped down and stood still than I saw Guy had just returned as well. When Guy saw me, he lifted his head high. The boy's eyelids drooped, his expression hard to read, which only added a touch of melancholic charm to him. To be honest, he was truly handsome. Back when I watched lots of idol dramas and was spoiled by them, I adored boys with that melancholic aura. It was that face and that damned melancholic quality that had once completely enchanted me. Unfortunately, beneath that polished human skin he wore lay an ungrateful, ravenous ambition. In his past life, he benefited from me so much. When he had no money for school, he relied on my support. His sister's extravagant lifestyle was kept up by me. When his mother got uremia and needed a kidney transplant, I was the one helping to pay for her treatment. Even later, when he graduated and wanted to start a business, I was the one who invested in him. I even used the entire Lin family's resources as a dowry to support him. And what happened? The first thing he did after getting rich was to stab our whole family in the back. He said he was fed up with being looked down on. Fed up with people calling him a leech, a pretty boy. Even more fed up with our parents looking down on him when he was young. Looked down on him? What he calls our parents looking down on him was nothing more than them warning him at our wedding to treat me well, otherwise, they wouldn't let him off. As a result, his own bones were soft. He turned all these things into grudges. He caused the downfall of our Lin family, killed my parents, and in the end drove me to death. In my past life, Guy's face of twisted triumph slowly merged with this young face before me now. He looked at me, frowned slightly, then without a word opened his own house door and walked in. But he didn't close it. He turned and said to Wendy, "From now on, don't bring every dirty, smelly thing into the house." Wendy shot me a glare and said, "Look at what you've done to my brother, go on, hurry up and apologize." Watching the two of them perform, I let out a cold snort. In my last life they were already experts at this routine. One plays the red-faced role, the other the white-faced, openly and subtly puai me, trying to make me apologize first. I rolled my eyes, pushed the door open, and went in. Inside, Guy's mother was actually there too. Of course. Without my money, how could she afford to stay in the hospital? When she saw me come in, her beady eyes immediately filled with tears. They looked even puffier. "Lena, Auntie knows you look down on our family. It's Auntie's illness that's been a burden to you. I won't get treatment anymore. I won't. I'm begging you, please don't despise Guy. He's a good boy. Seeing you treat him like that at school today makes Auntie's heart hurt so much. Aunt lived half her life. If she dies, she dies. You're still young. As long as you treat Guy well, I'll make him marry you." Guy hurriedly said, "Mom, what are you talking about? Don't give up treatment, I'll treat you." "And why are you begging her? I would never marry such a vicious, petty woman." I was too bored to watch their performance and surveyed the house with my eyes, inside and out. The TV, washing machine, refrigerator, I bought those when I came to find Guy, because their family was so poor. Even the sofa and coffee table in their living room were bought by me. Guy's bedroom computer, bed, game console, desk, keyboard, and sneakers were all gifts from me. Every piece of clothing, every bag, every cosmetic, every piece of jewelry in Wendy's room was given by me. Damn. How could I be so stupid to have bought them all those things? No, I have to take them all back. Seeing that I didn't speak, Guy's mother looked up, glanced at me, and said, "This child has such a temper now, not even speaking to us anymore. I might as well just die." Guy, Mom, don't be mad. I'll make her kneel and apologize to you. Lena, aren't you coming over to kneel? I turned my head, squinting dangerously at Guy, then at his mother. That old witch's big gold bracelet on her wrist and the heavy gold necklace at her throat were things I'd bought. I gave them to her as a parting gift and she still looked down on them, saying she just liked gold because it felt good to look at. I can't forget those either, I'll take them all in a bit. Seeing that I still wouldn't speak, Guy and his mother exchanged a glance, both a little flustered. They seemed uncertain about me. Usually, when they played these games, I would have already been groveling, flattering them, admitting my faults and apologizing in every way. So why have I changed now? Guy cleared his throat, wearing an air of injured forbearance as he yielded, "Lena, if you don't want to kneel, that's fine, but you'll have to clear this up for me at school. Post something on the school's forum saying you were driven mad by unrequited love and that's why you spouted nonsense and slandered me. If you do that, I'll reluctantly agree to be your boyfriend for now. But if you misbehave later, or throw a tantrum at me like you just did, I'll break up with you immediately." He looked so self-important and condescending it made me want to gag. Is he sick or what? And he still feels this good about himself. Does he even have a brain? I rolled my eyes at Guy and called toward the door, "Uncle Richard, you guys can come in." The moment I finished speaking, Uncle Richard barged in with several other uncles and their burly drivers. Uncle Richard rolled up his sleeves and said, "Lena, whatever you say, we'll do." I pointed at the Guy household and said, these, and these, everything except those useless ones, move out everything else. I bought it all. Got it. With numbers comes strength, everyone obeyed me and started hauling things away. Guy and the others were stunned, but it was Guy's mother who reacted first, rushing out and shouting, "Don't touch that, it's my washing machine. My TV. My refrigerator. Put them down, they're robbing me, call the police, get them arrested." I watched Guy's mother rolling on the ground and throwing a tantrum, and smiled, "Are you sure all these things are yours?" Guy's mother froze. "What do you mean? If they're not mine, then whose are they? It's robbery, someone do something about these shameless bastards." I stepped forward, grabbed her hand and wrenched the big gold bracelet off. "This is mine too. Cry and call the police all you want, the purchase records and receipts for these items are all with me. God has arrived, these things are mine. Ah, my big gold bracelet. And this one is mine too. I also snatched off that damn necklace. Ah, my big gold necklace, call the police, catch this little bitch." Wendy had just been outside and, sensing something wrong, rushed in. Seeing Uncle Richard and the others constantly hauling things out of her room, she screamed like someone slaughtering a pig, "Lena, are you out of your mind? How could you do this? You said you were coming to my house to surprise me. If you do this, I swear my brother will never forgive you." I found the jewelry box Wendy had taken from me and checked what was inside. Luckily, everything was still there. Then, in front of Wendy, I put the jewelry box into my bag and, flashing my 8 front teeth, said, "This is my surprise, so, are you shocked? Are you pleased?" "Aw, Lena, you lied to me, I'll kill you." Wendy tried to rush over but was scooped up by Uncle Richard's driver. Where did this groundhog come from, barking in front of our young lady like that? When Guy's mother saw her daughter being wronged, she stopped throwing a tantrum, sprang to her feet, and shouted toward the outside of the house, "Help! Murder! Someone's stealing!" Don't say her shout didn't work. Soon a few people who didn't know the truth ran over, wanting to come in and help. Uncle Richard told them, "You'd better not get involved. We're just taking our things back. We're not killing anyone, and we're not assaulting anyone. Who says it's yours? It's ours, Guy's mother spat. Just because my son doesn't like that little bitch and doesn't want to date her, she had people come to our house to steal things. Lock her up and throw away the key. I laughed when I heard that. Me, steal? Every single thing here was bought by me. I have all the purchase records right here. And you? What do you have? All you do is spread rumors. Believe it or not, I'll countersue you. Say these things were stolen from me. Do you know how many years they'd add up to? Guy's mom froze, not expecting me to be so sharp. She didn't know how to reply. Guy kept his head down, saying nothing. I couldn't tell what he was thinking. At that moment a loud male voice rose from the crowd. Guy, didn't you say your dad's been dead for a long time, your mom's unemployed and always on medicine in the hospital, you and your sister are still in school, and your family's dirt poor? I'm just wondering, if you're so poor, how come you dress in gold and silver, wear designer labels every day? Turns out you're living off someone else. The crowd erupted into jeers at his words. Those who had been about to step forward to help also pulled back. Begging for handouts and calling it feeding, now there's logic. I looked toward the speaker and, to my surprise, recognized him. Guy's childhood nemesis, Henry. I remember last life when I came here looking for Guy, I used to run into him a lot. Whenever he saw me with Guy he'd always toss a barb at him. Guy often badmouthed him in front of me, and gradually I stopped greeting him too. Now that I think about it carefully, that man was actually trying to give me hints back then, but my love-struck brain didn't understand a single one. I smiled at him gratefully and kept directing people to move things. As for Guy, perhaps his pride had been bruised so badly that he didn't make a sound until everything was moved. Only when I took his computer did he glare at me with hatred and say in a muffled voice, Lena, I know you did it on purpose, just to get my attention, but I'm not going to forgive you. Me, then don't forgive him. Goodbye and good riddance. Don't ever come near me again in this lifetime. Bringing the stuff back only took a little of that bitter anger out of me. Lying in bed that night after a video call with my beloved mother, just about to drift off into a beauty sleep, Guy's call came through. What a jinx, who wants to pick up your call? I reflexively hung up and then went full block and delete. Just as I was about to fall asleep, the phone rang again. It was an unknown number. I hesitated for a moment but answered, Lena, are you serious? You actually changed the code to Jincheng Garden too? I understood instantly, the person on the line was Guy. Jincheng Garden is the upscale complex near the school where I'd let Guy stay. With him barking like that, it must be Uncle Wilson who changed the lock code and now he can't get in. Of course. Their house now has nothing left except the bed. So naturally they'd think of my big place. I hadn't expected my actions to be so thorough. Jincheng Garden is mine, I'll change it if I want. Do I need to report to you about it? Guy nearly choked to death because of me. But my stuff is still in your house, isn't it? I yawned. You mean your 2 towels and that toothbrush? I already had someone pack them up and put them at the gatehouse, just remember to pick them up later. Apart from that, everything else was bought by me. I packed it up to donate, no keeping anything for him. Guy's heavy breathing came from across. Fine, Lena, even if you force me to death it won't help. I don't love you, I just don't love you, I will never be with you. Beep, I coldly hung up the phone, then blocked him again. I left a message with the property management at Jincheng Garden, telling them not to let Guy in anymore. It seems Guy still doesn't get it. I really don't love him anymore. So none of his tricks work on me now. Back at school, Guy didn't show up for class the next day. I knew he wouldn't, he's so proud, and now that he's been publicly humiliated, he'll probably hide for a few days before coming back. With Guy no longer nagging me every minute, I fell even more in love with studying. Thinking about how our family is now working with Uncle Richard on a new energy project, I asked my dad to pull some strings and got me placed in our dean's project team. He had been working on research and development of new energy batteries and was a leader in the field. Besides, I know he will definitely succeed in the future. When I joined the project team, I didn't expect to run into Henry here, Guy's nemesis, that big boy who always speaks up for what's right. After a few days of getting to know him, I found he was even better than I remembered from my past life. Hardworking and eager to learn, upright and straightforward. Like Guy, he was a poor student, even from a family worse off than Guy's, but he never hid it. To save money, he often ate the simplest meals. Thinking of his situation, I would bring him 2 dishes to go each time. He would graciously thank me for my kindness. He never misconstrued it. He had none of Guy's awkwardness. He seemed to have noticed my puzzlement and said aloud, "Classmate Lena, I'm no thankless wretch, I'm Henry, and I do know how to be grateful." Hearing that, I laughed. Of course. Where there are thankless wolves, there are also people who know to repay kindness. What is there to fear about being poor? As long as you work hard, circumstances will change someday. But if a person's heart is poor, then no lifetime will be enough to fix it. Henry's heart wasn't poor. People like him will never do badly in the future, and in his past life he had come close to success. Guy told me that story like it was a joke. He said Henry had developed the key technology for a new energy battery and had even filed the patent. He was about to join the ranks of the new tech elite and leap across class lines. Who would have thought that because he skimped on food when he was young, didn't eat properly, he later developed stomach cancer and left early? I'm not a saint, but for someone as good as him, I'm willing to give him a hand. After talking with Henry, I chose to sponsor him. The price was that if his project ever succeeded in the future, he would have to give priority to partnering with one of our Lin family companies. The condition sounded a bit harsh. Compared to the future value of the project in his hands, this small sponsorship was negligible. Unexpectedly, Henry readily accepted. Henry smiled at me and said, "I can tell the difference between one full meal and being full every meal. With Miss Lena around I won't go hungry anyway, so this deal isn't a loss for me. Which capitalist gives me 2 medical checkups a year and lets me eat this well every day? Boss, I'm with you." Just when everything on my side was going smoothly, Guy suddenly returned. With him came the $5 million he had secured for a new energy research and development project. I watched him basking in the spotlight around joy in the crowd and narrowed my eyes. I was certain Guy was back. Good. I might not be so ruthless with the 18-year-old Guy, but I would show no mercy to the 38-year-old Guy. Guy had once again become the golden boy admired by thousands. Those stains on his reputation were entirely washed away with the arrival of this project he brought. The market he had his eye on was also new energy. Those of us who get to live a life again all know how brilliant this sector will be in the future. What surprised me was that his target was also Henry. Only Henry looked down on people like him. He often treated Guy's attempts to get close as a joke, talking about them with us in the lab. The investment Guy found came from the man who was Uncle Richard's arch-rival. He used the knowledge and experience he'd accumulated in his past life to persuade that person to invest. But what he didn't know was that I had already closed off the path to this new energy. After hitting wall after wall with Henry, a cornered Guy turned to me. "Lena, you're back too, huh?" he called out, catching me alone and stopping me to ask. I looked at him oddly. "Why are you barking like a dog?" Guy's face went ashen. "It's really not you?" I rolled my eyes at him. "If it's not me, then what, your mother? I certainly didn't give birth to an ungrateful son like you. Why are you being so rude all of a sudden?" "Because I don't give my tenderness to people I dislike." "Ugh, get lost, you disgusting thing." Guy was successfully driven away by my anger. He wanted to probe my weaknesses, dream on. 5 million sounds like a lot, but research into new energy simply isn't something that amount can solve. Still, Guy was very optimistic. In his previous life he had succeeded in starting a business. He couldn't believe that with the wisdom of 2 lifetimes he wouldn't succeed. I looked at the private detective's report and shook my head with amusement. "Guy, you really won't succeed. Without the Lin family's help, who would give you so many resources? Your inflated self-regard will be your ruin sooner or later." All I have to do is add a little push to the tide. Guy burned through his 5 million faster than he expected. Unfortunately, after all this time, they still haven't even finalized an expert RD team over here, and his investors aren't going to top him up. He ran around chasing funding and found it much harder than he'd imagined. Why? It had been so easy in his last life. I listened, amused by everyone's gossip about Guy. Because, you see, without being the Lin family's son-in-law as a door opener, you can't even get through their front gate. All that smooth sailing in his previous life? That was all because of us. The guy who couldn't bring in any money was once again playing with my mind. I don't know what he was thinking. He came up to me several times, striking poses, tilting his head back at a 45-degree angle to gaze at the sky, showing off a delicate jawline. Too bad, to my heart already severed from love, he was nothing but a piece of shit. Henry and I were on the same project team, and whenever the guy started acting lecherous, Henry was always by my side. Over time, the guy finally couldn't hold back. He sneered at Henry, a man who lives off a woman's earnings. That was the one phrase the guy in his last life hated most. To him, the word pierced the heart at maximum intensity, a 10 on the scale. He used what he thought was the most damaging insult to stab at Henry. Too bad Henry was different. Henry looked him in the eye, nodded, and said, "You're not wrong. My teeth aren't good, so I do like to eat soft rice." Guy froze. "What did you say?" Henry shouted, "I said I love living off a woman. I'm a kept man, did you hear me this time? Ungrateful wretch. I'm not like some people who sponge off others while pretending to be independent." Guy felt struck by lightning. He had never seen anyone accept that label so matter-of-factly. It didn't make sense. Didn't men care about face? Too bad Henry had no intention of being his spiritual mentor. Seeing him dazed, Henry grabbed me and started to leave. But my steps were halted by a hand jutting out at an angle. "Lena, why?" Guy grabbed my arm and asked confusedly. "Why did you suddenly stop liking me?" "Henry and I are the same, we're both poor kids." I pulled my hand away from Guy and said each word slowly, "What are you, that you can even ask me that? Besides, you two aren't the same. Henry's heart isn't poor." After saying that I turned and left. He wanted to follow, but Henry stopped him firmly. "Yes. He doesn't deserve it. A rotten person like Guy, without my love to cling to, doesn't even have the right to come near me." In the end, Guy did manage to secure investment. The other party claimed to be an angel investor. He wanted to check their credentials, but they went dark and said they would pull out. Guy immediately said he didn't need to see anything, then signed a pile of agreements and took 2 million from them. I almost cried laughing when I saw the private detective's message. Good. Wonderful. Guy, you just take other people's money without looking. Sure enough, a cornered dog will jump at anything. He wanted success so badly that he would take any money. Just like I did in my past life. Back then I wanted revenge. I finally set up a project, but Guy, fearing I'd retaliate if I succeeded, laid this kind of trap to ensnare me. The project didn't meet its deadlines or expectations, and I was hit with a huge penalty for breach of contract, 100 million. 100 million. I could never pay that in my lifetime, I'd have to repay it with my life. Now, Guy, it's time for you to give my life back. Guy failed. He owed them a huge sum. Then he vanished from the world. Everyone thought he was dead, but I didn't believe that. Someone as despicable as him wants to live more than anyone. That Mid-Autumn festival, the whole school had the day off. My parents and I went out to eat, and when we returned to the villa, we saw Guy sitting at the gate. He was scruffy, like a drowned rat. When he saw our car coming, he rushed straight at it, nearly giving Uncle Wilson a heart attack. By the time the car stopped, my dad leapt out furious and gave Guy a scolding to remember. When I finally got a clear look at Guy's eyes, I was startled. His eyes were so red they looked ready to bleed. Guy looked at my father and mother, smiled, and then the smile broke into tears. "You two came to collect my life, didn't you?" Right, in my last life, it was I who tampered with your car. Who told you two old immortals to look down on me? My parents stared at me, faces full of terror. What kind of lunatic is this? I picked up my phone and quietly dialed a number. Guy suddenly looked up at me. It was you, wasn't it? You were reborn too, come back to take revenge, aren't you? I smiled without speaking. Want to know the truth? I'm simply not going to tell you. Why should I make you a fully enlightened ghost? You should remain muddled, pitifully and utterly dead. You don't have to speak for me to know it's you. Guy shouted like a madman. This whole scheme was tailor-made for me by you, every ring and step, all you're doing. You were the one who used it to kill me back then, and now you've come back to pay for it. I made you owe 100 million, and you made me owe 300 million. You bitch, how can you be so vicious, how can your luck be so damned stubborn? I'm going to kill you. A murderous light flared in Guy's eyes. He drew a knife and lunged at me. My parents, seeing it, rushed forward, jostling to get in front of me to block the fatal blow. But that knife would never cut into us again in this life. Those debt collectors were lying in wait near our house, it was my letter that brought them. Because I knew he would definitely come looking for me. They had arrived even before Guy grabbed the knife. Guy was seized. Before they dragged him away, he knelt on the ground like a dog and begged me. Lena, a day's husband, 100 days grace, please, please save me. I was wrong, I'm less than a pig or dog, I don't know how to be grateful. I truly regret it, I was wrong, I really was wrong, please save me. Looking at Guy's wretched state, the last scrap of sympathy inside me vanished. He would suffer more than in my past life. In their hands, he wouldn't even deserve to die. He will live on, sinking day and night in this enormous remorse, until those people squeeze the last bit of value out of him. I didn't look at Guy again, I motioned for them to take him away. Even after they had gone far, I could still hear Guy's screams. My father leaned in, puzzled. Lena, what nonsense is that guy spouting? What about a husband and wife, what about killing us? Dad, he's talking nonsense. You believe a madman's words? Not convinced? Good thing you saw his true colors long ago, otherwise, who would want a crazy son-in-law? Right. Who would want a crazy one? Luckily, I saw through him long ago in this life. After Guy was arrested, his sister came to see me once. She said her mother's uremia had gotten worse, and Guy was nowhere to be found, so she had to come to me, his sister-in-law. She had that self-righteous look, which made my mother so angry she had someone throw her out. Then she demanded the property management step up security, to protect our place properly. No letting every Tom, Dick, and Harry wander in. Guy's damn illness was indeed serious. He barely scraped together some money to be hospitalized, but his sister swiped it all to buy luxury goods. Their mother died alone in the rented room, and the landlord just muttered about bad luck. Henry told me all of this. I stopped paying attention to the Guy family's affairs a long time ago. These people, without me, this is what they become. In my last life they rode on my shoulders and got a glimpse of a world that wasn't theirs. And in the end they complained that my ladder was dirty. Now I want you to understand that without me as the ladder to the heavens, you don't even have the right to look up at me. I respected your fates, yet this is how you turned out. Fortunately, in this life I've avoided those rotten people. Every day of my future I will live well, claiming the brilliant life that belongs to me. Dear girls, I hope you learn to love yourselves before loving others, steer clear of rotten people, and live your own beautiful lives.